and welcome to the Digital Rabbi podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for taking the moment to join us for this awesome episode. We've got a special guest who I'll introduce in just a few moments. But firstly, let me just say, hey, quickly, hit subscribe, rate, review, all that sort of jazz. Don't be a stranger. Let's be friends. Let's talk some more, and hopefully you're going to get some helpful content rocking up. And today we have a guest, the man, the myth, the legend. It's Reuben Rohard, or as we may know you by on Instagram, Design by Reuben. Hi, Reuben. How are you?
It's me. Hey, how's it going? I'm really good, thanks. Really good. Good to be here. Excited to be here with the digital rabbi himself. So, we've connected a couple of times on Instagram, but this is the first time we've actually chatted, I guess, face to face. So just excited to be here.
It's funny, isn't it? Like, I feel like relationships nowadays, particularly, you know, in the digital space, you just kind of connect and then suddenly you're friends, but you don't realize you've never had a conversation. Yeah. There's never been a cup of tea or a coffee, but it's just like, just flying messages, just mutual appreciation, sort of, colliding. So
it happens.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on.
You feel like you know them. So it's a fun one. So no, always happy to hang out with my Instagram friends.
Come on. So, Reuben, just tell us a bit about what you do. I know you've just moved cities. You're in the UK. Just tell us a little bio. Maybe if people don't know you, not familiar with you.
Yeah. So my name is Reuben. As Sats have already said, me and my wife, who's from California, her name is Megan. She is the best human on the earth. We moved from little plug. We moved from Kent about 2 months ago up to the city of Norwich. To be part of a really cool church here called Soul Church in the UK. And so we're just excited to be here. I'm a freelance designer by trade. So I work with churches all over the world, mainly in the US, and a few marketing agencies as well. So I've been doing that for nearly 2 years. But my previous background is in church communications. So I was working for a church in Kent for 4 years previously to going freelance. So yeah, I've been about in the church world for a while. And now both me and my wife help work for church clients, and we do social media, graphics, design. And then I have my Instagram page called Design by Reuben, which is really about inspiring and helping other creatives to push themselves creatively and hopefully improve their church media.
Yeah, that's awesome. Love it. Well, I can tell you've given that bio before because it was very succinct. I was thinking I should have narrowed it down, but I thought we were going to get like a life story. I was born here and then what else?
Yeah.
But it was great. I loved it. Okay, that's awesome.
Short.
Yeah.
add some mystery to this conversation.
Yeah, come on. So Reuben, we obviously connected on Instagram, and go follow Reuben at Design by Reuben. And I'm really amazed by what you've been able to do for Instagram. I don't know when I started following you. But just seeing your designs come out, great designs. But I think the thing that really stands out is not just your design. And it's interesting you said church communications there, because there's some great thoughts in it. And how important is, good thinking in design? Because it's not just about it looking good, is it? Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah. And so in terms of my Instagram itself, it is a creative challenge for me more than anything about creating a design every day. Just a bit of history into why I launched this Instagram page was when I finished working at this church, when I was leading the communications team, I really felt that I needed to develop my own personal mission, not just a mission within the church. And so I went down this whole journey of, okay, what does God want me to do specifically? And started to kind of think about that a bit more. And I remember a couple of years before I finished that job at the church I felt like God had said, you're going to have an impact in the creative world, and you're there to help encourage creatives in the church. So I always had that kind of in the back of my mind, and I assumed that working in the church was how I was fulfilling that mission or that goal. Right. When I left, I was like, oh dear, I went freelance so me and my wife could move to the US, but that's a whole other story. So I kind of needed to have this form of this mission or this kind of goal, but that wasn't tied to a local church as we were moving. So I developed this Instagram page to kind of just help get my ideas out there, still be creative, but also connect with creatives all over. And so I started that 2 years ago. I started on the 1st of January 2020, pre-COVID, but obviously COVID just accelerated the growth of that. And so it's a good thing to start on the 1st of January because it just makes it really easy to remember. And so I did that in the 1st of January 2020 and just been on this really cool journey. But to kind of come back to your question of church communications, a lot of what I do on Instagram is kind of playing the Instagram game, right? So consistency is key in this game. And so I don't think I would create every day if Instagram didn't reward me for that. So there's this balance of being creative, but also of knowing the platform you're on. So it's been a really good exercise for me in church communications in general, of understanding the whatever platform you're on and how to make the most of it. So I started off on Instagram in 2020, and then in 2021 I launched a YouTube channel, and it's that same story of like, now I've got to play the YouTube game as well and work out how to fit into that environment. So it was kind of a twofold thing for me. It was pushing myself creatively and connecting with creatives and hopefully teaching them something, learning something from them, just building community. And then the second thing was just learning how to kind of find your voice on these platforms and kind of play the game that the platform wants you to play. So I guess hopefully that answers your question.
No, that's a great answer. And I love that phrase, the game that the platform wants you to play, because that is it. Instagram is going to reward, I guess, attention. But can you I like what you said about just kind of, because I think when you're posting consistently, obviously that's great. But I think what you also get is you get a bit of a feel for what's happening. You see the response, you feel the response. And that's some of the great advantages. If you are starting out, someone listening, you're just starting from scratch, it's actually great because you get to really see in real time feedback. How am I doing? And that can be great and bad, but it's mostly great. You should take it as great because you're getting that feedback. Reuben, what are some of the things you've done? I mean, your account is how many? It's like what, 17, 18,000? Is it more than that? Just tell us roughly how many followers you got.
I mean, I'm not that I've only got my Instagram page open so we can reference it in terms of designs, but the current count is 22,000. So we hit that recently.
Well, come on. Well done. I mean, that's some pretty good innings for a couple of years. And Instagram's crazy, isn't it? You've got people with millions upon millions of followers. But I think in terms of impact, you really have managed to figure out your niche, and you've targeted creatives very specifically. Just help us understand, how have you learned how to use Instagram? Is it purely from just using the platform? Or have you figured some of these things out?
Yeah. So, I mean, firstly, like I didn't just come onto Instagram 2 years ago. I've been part of Instagram since 2011 or whatever. You know, when you had those classic filters that made your photos look 10 times worse than they actually were, with the little white border or the fake Kodak picture or whatever. So I've been part of Instagram, and this is kind of my platform of choice personally. I've been part of this for 10 years now, which is crazy to think that Instagram's been around for that long. And so in that time, I've had my personal Instagram, I've worked on church Instagrams. And so I've been around a bit in terms of knowing accounts and knowing kind of how to use Instagram. But the last 2 years have really helped me understand just what the kind of work that's required to build an Instagram. Not to say it's like difficult, but it takes consistency, and that's the key thing. And just understanding like what's worth your time and what's not worth your time. So I think for me, what I've learned personally is that it's not about the quality of the content, although that is important. That does on some days go the extra distance. Say if for me as I design it around a theme, if the theme's not strong, the design helps elevate the theme. But what I found most of the time is the theme and the thing that you're basing the design on, or the content on the actual piece of work you're creating. That's the most important thing. And you could design something on Canva, you could design something on Keynote, and if the content's good and you're consistent in how you post it, then that's the best way that I've found to be on Instagram. Is just to keep posting consistent content. It doesn't have to be the best looking. If you look at Gary V's Instagram, it's probably the ugliest like page ever. But it's not about the look of it. It's about the content. And he posts 3-4 times a day, and still is making such a big impact in the kind of business thought leadership space. So, yeah, I would say if anyone's listening right now, just try and be consistent. Try and get content out daily if you can, but don't worry too much about how it looks. Just focus on getting it out there consistently. And what people will do is when they look at your content, normally what happens is they'll scroll. It'll be recommended. They'll tap on, or they'll see it on someone's story that they've shared. They'll tap on it. The first thing they do is they look at how many posts you have. Like they'll look through your grid. And if there's a lot of content that someone's looking through, and they go, hey, this is actually a really good account, they'll hit follow. If they go on there and they go look for the first 3 photos and there's a month gap between posting, they'll say, why is this person worth my follow? Because they only post once a month. So the key thing is you want to create so much content and so much stuff on your Instagram or on any social media really, that someone feels that they cannot afford to miss following you. If they miss following, they'll miss your content. So that's the kind of thing we want to encourage is not a lot of content, but a consistent amount of content, and focusing on the theme or the actual copy or the text or what the message behind the content is. Focus on that and don't worry too much about the design itself.
Yeah, that's so good. Because you're absolutely right. The best design in the world, if it doesn't really make any sense or it doesn't really say anything. It's so true. And have you done anything else? So because obviously posting high quality content, and you said a word earlier which I thought was just really cool to focus on, is just the word work. Like, it is work. And sometimes we have this idea. I remember I was building a website for a client, something like that, and this particular lady, she wanted to have an app, I was like, you don't need to have an app, but she really wanted to have an app because she was like, everybody wants to be on an app, but just having an app doesn't necessarily mean people are going to go on it. And I think there's work involved in Instagram where it's sometimes painted as if I just get on the platform, it will work. And it's like, well, kind of not. That there is something about showing up and investing time into it that really does make a difference. Have you done anything additional to that? I'm reluctant to move too quickly past that because I think that is the bulk of it, is great quality content. But do you have any sort of engagement strategy or things that you do also to try and help reach more people?
Is this in terms of my personal Instagram, or like as in designed by Reuben, or just in like, I guess, like, are you asking me like what other projects have I worked on, or is it just specific to this page?
I suppose, so you're posting, I think, daily your designs. How have you grown your account? Is it purely you've just posted, or are you doing things additional to that within the platform?
Yeah. So 2020 was when I set myself. So basically what happened in January 1st, I set myself the goal of posting every day for 2020. So whether it was raining outside, snowing outside, whether there was no internet in my house, whether I was designing on battery on a train, or whether I was in my office with the proper setup, I was going to design something and I was going to post it. Yeah. And so for 2020, I did that, and I got to the end of the year and I had 366 posts to my name, which obviously last year was a leap year, so 366 days. So I had 366 posts to my name, and I thought, what's the next step? Got to the end of the year, I was like, hey, what do I do next? I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over again. I've got to think about what people want from this page. Because when you build a following, it doesn't just become, they're looking to you for the next step. So they follow you first for content. Yeah. And then now they're looking for you like, okay, what's new, what's fresh?
What was the growth on the account, Reuben, by the time you got to that end of that first year? Just from posting. See, we're talking nothing else. No following people. No, use hashtags.
I mean, I was using
interacting with other accounts.
Yeah. So part of that strategy of daily posting with hashtags and like engaging with other accounts as well. That was a big thing. I was an active part of the creative community. So those are the 3 things: being part of the community, daily or consistently posting, and using what Instagram offers, whether that's stories, hashtags, like reels, that kind of thing, like making the most of Instagram's features. So at that point, I was probably I think I hit 10K in the October around that time. So maybe by the end of the year, 12, something like that. And so I got to December and I was like, great, I've got a year. I set myself the goal. I completed it, which is actually quite rare for me to set myself the goal or a New Year's resolution at least and stick all the way through. So I got to the end of this. What do I do next? So I was like, okay, I found daily posting, although it was a lot of work, was incredibly rewarding for myself as a creative challenge to myself. So I'm going to do that again. And I was like, but now how do I I've got this following of quite a few creatives in the church space. How do I help them move the needle for themselves, for their church, for their design page? I was like, okay, now I need to work on some educational content, some content of things that I've learned that I can pass on. Right. So I moved into the YouTube space and more into the video space on Instagram, which coincided well because Instagram is now heavily moving towards video. So I started releasing a weekly kind of like tutorial or idea or thought for designers, and that was specific. So my niche is Christian content, but my specific niche over the last year has really been helping Christian creatives. So like diving even deeper into that niche, and although that seems like you're reducing your audience, it's actually helped me massively in just really knowing who my target audience is and creating content specific for their needs. So yeah, the last year has really been just like focused on video content as well as daily posting.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel? Let's talk about the niche for a moment, because I think there's something that's difficult for churches. Now, obviously, you're a creative, but so you're focusing in on Christian creatives. For churches, do you think churches also need to have a niche?
I mean, I think that their community is a niche, right? The community that they serve in their local area is a niche by nature. They, for you you're in Shoreditch, right? So for you in Shoreditch, you have a niche of people who aren't going to look like the people of Norwich, or they're not going to look like the people of Edinburgh, or wherever they are. Very different.
Sure.
People in Shoreditch don't do deep fried Mars bars. People in Edinburgh do. There's a clear difference. So there's this niche of people that you serve, and I think as any church leader, you already have a niche, if you know it or not, and you're actually very aware of the niche. So, but this is where it starts to when we get onto the digital space and we're serving a community wider than our local area. This is where this whole niche thing comes in. So I think people need to tailor their niche based on the content they're producing. So I think let's say for Transformation Church, they have a very wide reach, but they have a very specific niche. The niche is people who will listen to great motivational speaking, but don't mind listening to it for an hour and a half. Mike Todd on some days goes for an hour and 30 minutes on a preach. Right. There's a lot of people that will, there's a lot of people that won't listen for that long. But what Transformation have done has listened to that and gone, okay, well, my niche is the people that will listen to that. And then there's a huge market or a huge audience or a huge niche for people that would listen to 15 minutes or less sermons. So I think the first place to start is your local niche, your community, understanding what their needs are, tailoring to their needs, and then seeing if that works in the digital space. So the content you're producing, does that work in the digital space, and building a following through that. If it doesn't work, I think as a church, you need to ask yourself the question, who are we reaching? Are we reaching our local community? Are we a local church, or are we trying to reach the global space and the global church? I think you probably already know the answer to this question. If you are reaching the local area, then focus on that and just try and find a way for your digital to kind of complement that and maybe reach people that aren't able to attend church on a Sunday or that look to your church as kind of as their home.
Yeah, for sure.
So I would say focus on local and kind of create the environment you create on local. See if that sticks on social, and I think the chances are you'll find it does stick if you are an accurate representation of what you do in person. I think if you look at churches like Saint Church in Hackney area, and just the overall aesthetic and the community that they've built, that translates really well to social, and they're doing a great job in what they're doing right now. So I think if you can create an accurate representation of your local community on social, you'll have a pretty good chance of building a good following from that.
Yeah. And I think it's a lot to do with self-awareness as well as a leader, because it's interesting, you're a Christian creative reaching Christian creatives. I'm a church leader and a creative reaching church leaders and creatives. That's my niche. So do you think there's a sense in which we inevitably end up reaching people who are like us? I mean, it kind of makes sense in a way. We're going to naturally connect to people who are similar to us. Here we are, two creatives connecting.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And it's about what you're passionate about as well. If you cannot force, to be consistent in something, and which means that you post in the good days and the bad days. To be consistent, you have to be passionate about it. So it's the same thing as showing up to church on a Sunday. Although some days it's cold outside, it's raining outside, and all we really want to do at 8 in the morning, 9 in the morning, you want to just be in bed. It's a Sunday. You've had a busy Saturday. You just want to relax. But it's the getting up and going out. It's the pushing yourself and being consistent, because you're passionate about church, and there's a reward at the end of it, that you'll get something out of it. And if you don't feel that about what you're doing, then there's something missing. because you need to be passionate about what you do. So if you're not passionate about the thing you're trying to do on social media, don't do it. Because all you're going to do is create a massive headache for yourself, and the chances are you won't grow a following, because people will see straight through the kind of facade that is, I am passionate about this. They'll see straight through it, and they'll see a person who doesn't really feel motivated to do it. And on Instagram or on social media, you have to do everything 10 times the energy, or because it's like, if you look at TikTok, the amount of energy that goes into a single video, you would never do that in person. Like if we're chatting, you would never be so exuberant or like high energy, but on social you have to be, because it's 10 times the amount of energy than it is in person. So if you're not prepared to put that energy, that sacrifice in, and also if you're not passionate about it, it's just not worth doing.
There's a lot of noise as well, isn't there? So I think to cut through the noise, it does require a little something, and to kind of just push through. And I think once you get a little bit of momentum, that's probably the great thing about posting every day as well. You do create momentum. I'll get a question though. Did you schedule any of those posts, or are we talking like Christmas Day, your birthday, your creative design? Let's just level up from because I was like, wow, every day.
So I've done batch designs before. So for instance, on my weekends, I do take Sabbath seriously on Saturdays. Like it is a day of rest for me. So I really try hard not to work. And especially Saturday and Sunday is like being a freelancer. I work Monday to Friday. Saturday and Sunday I take off. And so what I try and do on a Friday is get my 2 posts ready for the Saturday and Sunday. I don't write the captions, and I don't if I'm super like on it, then I'll write the captions to have them drafted. I don't use a scheduling tool, so I'll just jump onto Instagram, post it, and send it off. So the most I've done is, I think me and my wife went on honeymoon in May this year to Mexico, which was fun. But there was a week beforehand where I worked as basically double as hard to work to produce the next week's content. So while I was on honeymoon, I was posting, but it took like 5 minutes just to post it that I'd already designed, and then enjoyed the rest of it. So there are some small sacrifices, but if you're clever about how you do it, you can make it sustainable. So for me, I push hard for 5 days of the week. I have everything ready, and then on Saturday and Sunday I relax, and then I go again on Monday to Friday. So I am daily posting, and I am creating content for every day, but there are days I do take off and take rest seriously, which is why I think I've survived for 2 years. I think if I was posting every day, I think by the first 6 months I would have been out.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. Like I go through waves of throwing out a lot of content, but hey, you got to do it. Got to keep working on it. Hey, let's talk about YouTube then, because I think YouTube is one of the. We made the decision as a church. Well, we were using the what is it called, the online church platform thing,
Church Online
Live Church.
Yeah,
something like that. It's like a very obvious but generic name, and I could never remember it. And that was great, and people were gathering, and we were streaming, I think, to YouTube as well. And I just was hearing a lot of noise. I wasn't necessarily someone who is super clued up on YouTube, apart from the fact that we all use it. And I was like, no, we're just going to focus just on YouTube, and we're going to stop, just having streaming to Facebook. It's just like, okay, no, let's just focus just on YouTube. And still on that journey of just leaning into it. But just, I don't know if you can give us any insight for anyone listening who doesn't understand the power of what YouTube is, because it's not just another social media network. It's pretty profound. Can you just give us a little bit of insight there, Reuben?
Yeah, so YouTube, the incredible thing about YouTube is it's not, like you say, it's not just a social platform, but it's a search engine. So it's the second largest search engine just behind Google, which, if you think about it, it's insane. If you think about how to fix a car, how to do DIY, how to cook something, most of the time you'll just search on YouTube. You won't even search on Google. You'll just go straight to YouTube, search it, because there's going to be a video on it. So your whole, you join, instead of joining a social platform, you kind of join a library of content. And so it's way more difficult to find your seat within that, because there's billions and billions of minutes worth of content on YouTube that you have to find your place in. And I'm still very much on that journey. Instagram's a walk in the park compared to YouTube, because the amount of time it takes to, on a good day, I can knock a design out in 30 minutes and have it ready for Instagram. On a good day with YouTube, it takes maybe 5 hours to produce a video, of 10 minutes or whatever. And that's an incredible amount of investment every week and then to not see necessarily a similar return as to what I was seeing on Instagram can sometimes be a tough pill to swallow. But the very cool thing about YouTube is your content lasts so much longer. It's almost evergreen, if we can use that term. And so while Instagram has a shelf life of maybe, they've improved it recently, but the shelf life may be a couple of days. Sometimes I'll see a post that did well that kind of is still reaching people maybe a week later, but that's as far as it goes. If you want to reach people long term on social, on content platforms, the only two really are Pinterest and YouTube. And Pinterest is just Pinterest is mainly inspiration based. So you have to be, if your niche doesn't fit that, then it's not really worth being on there. Right. But a little hack, if you do have a pastor that's putting out really good quotes, just put them on Pinterest as well, because you'll be amazed at, I think it was last year I uploaded I think it was like June last year, I uploaded six or seven designs onto Pinterest and just left them for a year. And they came back and I had 1,000 followers on Pinterest. And I was like, I haven't done anything, but people have just saved it and it's kind of cool. And people are still saving it now a year later. So it is a really cool niche to tap into and something to think about. But let's get back to YouTube. YouTube, the cool thing I've found is that I've posted tutorials, and let's be transparent on kind of how my YouTube's doing. So I started at the 1st of January 2021, getting a great benchmark. We're getting close to the 1st of January 2022. So if you've got anything you want to start it on the 1st of January. It's a really good benchmark to start from. So I started on the 1st of January 2021, and I'm at about, I think, 1.1K or something like that subscribers. So a good inroads, but nowhere near the kind of growth that I saw on my Instagram. So in my head, I'm like, what am I doing wrong? But it's completely different kettle of fish. So some of my videos, and this is the thing, it's such a huge variation. Some of my videos that I've produced maybe have 200 views, 300 views, and they've been out for 6 months. Some other content, there's a tutorial. I think my most watched video was a video that was a Chrome tutorial design, and I posted that in like March, and it's on like 15,000 views now. And this is the thing, is like it's only built that in the last like 6 months. So it's one of those, like, it's very much like a seed in the ground, and then YouTube will, if YouTube decides it's worth people like accessing, then they'll make it accessible and it will grow and grow and grow. So I think if you balance those two things, if you balance your short-term content, if you think about the shelf life of your content, and this is what Sats is going to do after this with this podcast, is some of the short-term stuff, the little small clips, short-form video, that's going to last a couple of days, maybe a week max. Put that on Instagram, and then your long-term strategy is YouTube or something like that. Then you're covering this wide range of timeframes that your content is on and it doesn't expire on. So I think it's good to balance those things. I use YouTube as kind of like my long-term strategy, my long-term play, and Instagram as my short-term kind of, and I balance the two together. So I'll point people from my Instagram onto YouTube. People find me on Instagram, they like my designs, they want to know how I make them, they go to my YouTube. If someone's on my YouTube, they like my video and now want to see what I create with it, they go to my Instagram. So it kind of, they feed into each other. Yes, if you can create some kind of system like that, then I think your content, your most time intensive, resource intensive, your sermon content on a Sunday, I think it takes up the most time for you as a pastor. If you can find a way to make that stretch even longer, you're just getting more and more views, engagement, just more people hearing the message you have to say. So I think it's really important to work both things into your strategy. YouTube for the long term, Instagram for the short term, or another social platform.
Yeah, that's so good. I think there's so much potential in YouTube, and you've articulated it really well there. That it's the long term strategy, and And actually, it's really funny because obviously Instagram is very visual. It's very sort of current. So there is a sense of, oh, I want my Instagram to look cool. I'm sure church leaders feel like that. Oh, we need to rep, who we are, what we look like. But I think in terms of a strategy, if I had to pick one, I'd drop Instagram and just focus on YouTube. Because it's the impact to be greater, I think. Would you say?
Yeah, over time as well. If you think about, there's videos that are 10 years old on YouTube and that people still go back to. There's not posts on Instagram that are 10 years old and people still go back to. It's a completely different format. So I think if you're saying, wow, I'm putting 10 hours a week into a sermon or more, you're like, how can I make this the most efficient or optimized? YouTube's a great way to start. And like YouTube Shorts now as well. This is the cool thing about YouTube, is they're not just moving into long-term play. Their shorts are also like competing with Instagram on the short-term side of things. So YouTube's becoming a very interesting playground for content. And it's it's something that I think is not going to go away. I think Instagram's on its way out, personally.
Interesting.
In the next, I think they're making some good steps in terms of their algorithms to keep it going for a little bit longer. But I think Instagram, I think Facebook's gone. Personally, I think it's a pay to play environment now. So if you don't pay, people don't see, like with boosts and ads and stuff. And I think Instagram's going to eventually move into that as more and more people join Instagram. It's going to be difficult to fight for attention, and you're going to have to end up being pay to play. Whereas I don't think YouTube, their format is completely different. They make their money from ads that run on your content. So they want you to produce more content. And so then they put the ads on top. You don't have to pay to be on YouTube, unless you're a YouTube, whatever
YouTube
it is, Plus
Premium.
member. Premium, that's the one. So I think long-term play, focus on YouTube and try and make the most of YouTube Shorts as well. Try and find a way to break the kind of ground in that area. But don't leave Instagram yet, just because I said it. I could be completely wrong. In 3 years' time, it could keep growing and growing and growing, and I'm going to stick around until it dies. But
milk the cow as much as you can.
Don't get too precious about the social platform you're on. Is probably what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and I think that's where YouTube and then even website, email, really you see the value in it, because when everything's short term, it'll just disappear. When you own it, it will prolong its life. So there's definitely something I'm thinking about. How do we take our long form content and spread it out and make sure that it lasts? So turning sermons into articles, it's a lot of work, but it's the right sort of work. It's the long term work that is gonna it's gonna kind of outlast you. And actually, one of my favorite thoughts about because there was a bit of debate. There wasn't that much debate about online, but you know what I mean. There's been the whole always online, real church sort of thing, right? And I just love that the actual Bible, the actual scriptures, are essentially like YouTube videos or a podcast sent, from the past into the present. It's just using a different medium, but it's exactly the same, but they've lasted. And I think it's a great reflection to think, hey, in terms of what I'm creating now, how much is going to outlast for 2,000 years?
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's the goal. Like, I mean, I don't know if we'll all do it. I hope so. But you just kind of think, wow, that's the legacy, isn't it, of what we're doing now, that it is eternity. It's heading in that direction. So yeah, pretty fascinating stuff, for sure, Reuben. And I think probably just the other thing to throw in there is just this idea around SEO as well. So you're from a church comms background. And I think I said this either at the start of the podcast or as we were chatting in the kind of preamble, that what really works about your designs. Obviously, it's great design, but it's the the content, it's the wording, it's the expressions, it's the words themselves, the essence of it that is helpful. That's a big part of how we use YouTube to connect into what people are already searching for. Have you got anything you can help us figure that out? Are there any tools you use? I know there's some stuff you can pay for. What are the ways that you figure out? How do you figure out what content to create on YouTube?
Yeah, so I've kind of, one thing is obviously establishing your niche, so understanding who the audience is. So for me, it's Christian designers who are wanting to learn more. So
Yes.
the cool thing about that is because I'm passionate about that and I'm walking through that journey. And for me, I might be 2 or 3 years ahead of some people who are just starting out. I'm able to just now basically feed back the stuff I've learned to them. So as a Christian leader or a pastor, a really easy way is if you've been in a faith for 20 plus years and there's things that you've learned long term on your journey, whether that's battling illness, whether that's losing your job, whether that's going through anxiety. For a new Christian that's there for 1 year, they haven't gone through that kind of stuff yet with God by their side or knowing about God being by their side. So you can start to feed back that information that's really helpful. And then it's another thing of like understanding what people are searching for in like common language, right? If I put on YouTube as the cap, so let's say the title for my video, this was to get a chrome effect on some text. If I said how to use Photoshop filters, I don't know, like chrome effects with bevel and emboss, like it's just not a catchy title and people don't understand that, because the chances are someone's opened up Photoshop for the first time, they've seen this effect on Pinterest and they want to replicate it. So they're just going to search how to make text look like Chrome, right? And so it's very like layman's terms, very simple, trying to understand what people are thinking when they search. And there are tools to do this. Like if you go back to your videos that you've already made, you can see the things that people searched for that brought your video up and what was the most popular. Wow. So YouTube's got
that's helpful.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of analytics. It's one of the most, you can just spend hours just deep diving in there and looking. And they'll tell you like where most of your viewership came from, whether it was browsed, whether it was recommended, whether it was from external sources. They'll tell you demographics. They'll tell you all kinds of stuff that Instagram only touches the surface on. So definitely look at those on what you've already made and try and work using those analytics to create better content in the future. But yeah, you can go on to, I can't remember what the website is, but I've used it before, where you basically go on to like YouTube. It's like a YouTube search engine kind of thing that looks at the underpinnings of it. And it will basically say for this specific subject, people will search this. And so I think like people are going to be searching all the time on Instagram how to overcome anxiety or how to deal with anxiety. Some very simple, like just basic human stuff that people need answers to.
Human stuff.
If you can get, human stuff. If you can get your content into those things, like people aren't going to be searching, especially people who have never heard about the gospel before, never heard about Jesus. If they're not going to be searching how to pray a prayer that helps anxiety or how to let God into your situation. They're not going to really be searching that. They're going to be searching how to practically deal with anxiety. And for us as Christians and believers, we know that the Bible is a really practical tool to help us get through those situations. But people don't, on the outside, people don't understand that. So your content can be very the title of it can be very non-Christian focused and focused on people that are just searching for help with that specific subject. Then you lead them in that journey in the video. So I think there's a lot of stuff that you guys can do that maybe just think as well, like when you're putting these videos together, when you're putting them on YouTube, maybe just think from a non-Christian's perspective, what would they be looking for that this video has the answer to? And then just label the title title whatever they're searching for. And I can probably guarantee you'll get more views. I can't 100% guarantee because you could have a very set niche right now, but maybe just try it and see what happens. And I think thumbnails are a huge thing as well. Your thumbnail should be an accurate representation of what the whole video is about. So in one picture, what is your video? And it's got to be loud and it's got to be ugly because it's got to just have words and bright stuff and a picture of you with like a shocked face. Like, it's got to be like clickbait, right? To get people through the door.
It's a bit theatrical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's like a pantomime of your content.
Exactly. That's exactly what it's like. So if you're creating something about anxiety and it's like just a picture of a guy like standing with a microphone, the chances are no one's going to click on it. If it's a picture of like big letters saying anxiety with like bright red flashes behind it or whatever, and like someone like, what was that painting like, with the woman's like that, like the shocked face, like that. If that's the thumbnail, people are more likely to click on it. So I think spend some time on YouTube. Search when you're searching for things that you need help in the house. If you're doing DIY, if you're doing some cooking, whatever you search for, look at the titles and how they match up to with what you're searching, and try and just replicate that in your church setting as well. And I think if you just start to think like a non-church goer, you may actually end up reaching non-church goers.
Yeah, that's awesome. So good, Reuben. This has been so helpful. Thanks for being a part of today's episode. I think the word just comes to mind just to close is that I've been using is the word reverse engineering. Everything's moving so fast. Like, nobody knows how to do everything. We don't know either. We're just reverse engineering stuff that works, trying it out, testing it out, and then, oh, this works. And I think that's a great strategy. Hopefully it's working so far. Reuben, just anything you want to say just in closing, and tell people how they can find you online if they want to connect.
Yeah, that was good. What I was going to say, if you have any questions about design specifically, or about church communications, or just about, how I got to where I am in terms of my job or whatever, just feel free to reach out to me on Instagram. I'm always answering my DM. So just at Design by Reuben. And if you're American, Reuben is spelled like the sandwich, Reuben. At Design by Reuben, you can find me there. And both me and Sats are in this space. So feel free to reach out to him as well and ask him any questions that you may have about this kind of world. And hopefully I'll get a chance to do a few more of this kind of thing where you get to listen to some of my thoughts and ideas if you do like it. Feel free to come over to my Instagram to kind of see what I'm posting, and maybe some video content if you wanted to learn more.
Awesome. So good. Yep. Go follow Reuben at Design by Reuben, and go subscribe on YouTube. Go sign up to the email list. Go do everything. It will help you. Thanks for joining today for this episode of the Digital Rabbi podcast. I hope you found it helpful. Don't forget, hit subscribe, rate, review, and we're also on YouTube as well. So if you want to watch our lovely faces, you can get that as well. Need the subscribers, so please do that. Thanks for joining today. We'll catch you soon, guys. Bye.